Carolina, but far away from Japan. But I always wanted to fight over in Japan.
You did dominate Gomi, though, so.
Thanks.
How about that jab that night, huh? On point, right? It is interesting, though. When Kenny was in his prime, you know, there were probably 200 fighters on the roster. Now we have 530 UFC fighters spanning 9 divisions. Already in 2014, the year's about half over, we've had 113 fighters make their UFC debut this year. So by the end of this year, we'll probably have 200 fighters just in 2014 make their UFC debuts. It really is remarkable just how quickly things have expanded, you know? Thank you for the question, man.
Thanks again. I'm going to sit down. I could keep asking.
No, dude, when there's an open
worries,
mic,
man.
we welcome it. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame, by the way. And also, do you think you missed the boat on Ultimate Fighter 5? Do you think if you would have did that you possibly would have won?
If I did what? The Ultimate?
The Ultimate Fighter 5, if you would have waited for your natural weight class.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Because
man.
honestly, what you did was amazing. You fought Diego.
Thanks. I think about that a lot, you know. Fighting at 185, obviously, that was not my weight class. You know, that was way above my weight class. I had no business being there. Luckily, I survived it somehow. Yeah, 155.
That season would have been perfect for you. You had Gray, Nate.
You're right.
You know, that would have been an awesome season. Do you ever think, like, if you would have waited, you would have had a different? I mean, you still wind up fighting 2 champions in 2 divisions. So.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been an awesome experience. There were a lot of great fighters on that season, though, and a big thing for me is I didn't have a lot of experience before the Ultimate Fighter, and if I did wait to season 5, that would have been a smarter choice because I would have had more fights under my belt. So,
but, I mean, you got famous, Hall of Fame, you know. Hey.
Well, and, you know, he got a little bit of a late start, you know, in mixed martial arts. And if he had waited any longer, you know, that might have worked against him. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to say that I watched MMA Live back when it first came on. You know, great show, but it was very small. And yesterday I was watching ESPN, and they had Chris Weidman, Gilbert Melendez, and Stuart Scott all inside of an octagon. And Weidman was walking him through a standing guillotine. Stuart Scott asked why he wouldn't jump to guard. And it's just amazing to see, you know, how much the sport has progressed and how mainstream it is now. Just want to say that was great. And then also for Kenny, I wanted to ask if you've ever thought about getting into judging, because we could use some quality judges in this sport.
That judging is like the most thankless job ever. It's the most difficult thing, and you know, again, it's so tough. I'm not sure I'd want to do it, to be honest. And I know I do understand and believe that we do need better judging. But then I just put myself up for criticism if I became a judge. Yeah. So it's a tough thing, man. It's a tough thing.
That's true. Thank you.
I think you'd probably rather be a referee than a judge. Judging is just about as thankless as it gets. Yes, sir.
Hi, Kenny. I always wanted to see a rematch between you and Diego at 155. Didn't you ever want that? And why was that never?
I really did.
Yeah.
I really did. You know, the one fight, people always ask me, you know, what's the one fight you wish you could do again? And if I have to pick a fight that I lost, it would be Diego Sanchez for a couple reasons. Obviously, you know, it being the Ultimate Fighter finale, I always felt like I should have performed better. I felt like that was the one fight where I just didn't show up. I didn't show what I truly had. I let the event get the better of me, and that's definitely one fight I wish I had. But as a retired fighter, I feel like I can't go out and call anybody out at this point. You know, sometimes people love to ask, who would you want to fight, blah, blah. When I'm done, I feel like I have no right to call it anybody. It's just awkward, but that would be the fight.
Thank you.
I thought you could have him and Diego coach the Ultimate Fighter, and he makes his triumphant return, but that
Ultimate Fighter old guys.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yes.
Kenny, what made you originally see UFC and think, I could do that?
You know what? It was the first UFC, really, that I'm not sure I wanted to be a fighter at that point, but I wanted to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was fascinated by it, and the first time I did a seminar with Royce Gracie, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I was obsessed with it, just 24/7. I'd think about it. I'd dream about it. In the shower, I'd think about it, and I just became obsessed with it. So when you're so immersed into something, I feel like you want to experience everything there is to know about that. And it went from learning different submissions and executing it, to escaping different things, and then to competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling tournaments. And then it was that next level of, how would I do in a real fight? How would I do against another guy who wants to kick my ass? How would I do against a guy who wants to kick and punch me? How would I do against another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy in a real fight? And it came to just trying out one time, trying out a second time, a third time. I don't think I really wanted to be a professional fighter until that Ultimate Fighter finale. When I lost to Diego Sanchez, I was like, I can't go out like that. I really got to put an effort at getting better at this, and I'm going to go for it. It wasn't just about, let's try it. It was stepping over that line and finally committing to it, and I'm glad I did, man. Just such an amazing experience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we wait for another question, I just want to ask you about Ronda Rousey and Alexis Davis obviously meeting in the co-main event here tonight. Alexis Davis trying to shock the world, for lack of a better way to put it, trying to come through as one of the biggest betting underdogs we have ever seen in the UFC. What is it going to take? I mean, Ronda right now just owns this women's game. How do you even begin to make a compelling argument that Alexis Davis can get it done tonight?
Well, listen, Alexis Davis, she's big and strong for the weight class. She has a fair amount of experience where she's battled with a lot of tough fighters at this point in her career. When you look at her striking skills, you can argue that she has the edge there. She has excellent Muay Thai. She keeps people at the end of her punches and kicks. She's going to need to do that against Ronda Rousey. And in the clinch is where she needs to learn to separate, create space, get away from Ronda Rousey. Otherwise, she's obviously going to go for a little ride. Ronda Rousey will throw anybody in there, anyone in her weight class, male or female, she will throw you. So she's got to be careful in there. And obviously on the ground, she's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So she's not going to be easy to submit. I think that would be a huge feather in Ronda Rousey's cap if she got that armbar that she's so well known for. So defensively on the ground, she's going to have to be perfect. And on the feet, she's going to have to keep Ronda on the outside, not let her close that gap. And maybe try to slow her down with kicks, try to beat up the legs, slow her down. And I think it's real important to get a good first round off. She gets that good first round, that will kind of create some momentum, give her some confidence, and maybe slow down the champ. It's a very, very big mountain for her to climb, but she's got skills, man. She's very, very tough.
You know, I said I felt like the time to beat Ronda Rousey was, a year ago as she continues to develop. I think a lot of people fail to realize that she's still a developing fighter in her own right. If you've seen any of the videos of her training online, I mean, her hands are starting to sort of close that gap, coming up to the level of her ground game. It's pretty scary. And, I talked to BJ Penn on Thursday. He actually had the opportunity to train with Cyborg and Ronda Rousey within hours of each other. And he said that Ronda Rousey was much stronger. He was blown away by how strong she is. And, I know a lot of our UFC flyweights and bantamweights
And Ronda's face when they were about to lock up, it was like the world championship. She went in, grabbed BJ. She was very serious. And BJ kind of was smiling about it and kind of approaching it very lackadaisical. And not for Ronda. Ronda went out there, ended up throwing BJ pretty hard. And like BJ said, BJ goes, she's not strong for a girl. She's strong. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see Ronda go today.
I always used to say when you walked to the octagon, you sort of had this calm irritability, like you looked pissed off, but you were very calm. I mean, there are few greater visuals right now in all of mixed martial arts than Ronda Rousey walking to that octagon to kill. It's remarkable to see how far she has come so quickly. I remember last year here at the UFC Fan Expo, she just dominated this stage. If you wanted a piece of Ronda Rousey, you were waiting in line for 4 hours. And, when Dana White says she's the biggest superstar in mixed martial arts, I don't even care about pay-per-view numbers. There is a compelling argument to be made that right now Ronda Rousey is the biggest superstar we have in the UFC.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yesterday I saw Ronda walking into the arena, and she had that energy about her. I was like, I'm going to go say hello. No, I'm not. I'm going to just sit back. She looks like she's pretty focused right now. So, yeah, definitely. She's got that stare, man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, what's up, man? Quick question, guys. Do you think that after the Anderson-Silva fight with Weidman that it set kind of a... Because here's the thing. I thought that a lot of the fights, man, they're going the distance, and there's not as many knockouts as there used to be, stuff like that. Do you think that, especially after the Silva knockout, that fighters are not doing any more showboating and, stuff like that? I don't see it as much as I had before that fight.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson obviously learned a big lesson that night, but it was something that worked for him for a little while. That was his tactic for getting inside his opponent's head. Get him frustrated, get him coming, drop his hands to get them to come, then he'd counter. And it worked for him so well. It did not work, obviously, against Weidman. And, yeah, it goes to show you, listen, anytime you drop your hands, it's a risk. And when you're sticking your chin out there, that's a risk. So you'll see some guys do that, but there's very few that can actually do it and then counter and get a guy to kind of fall victim to that. Anderson Silva was one of those guys, and you have to have a very high level of skill in order to do that, and you have to be willing to take risks. And not everybody is willing to do that or has the skill or ability to do what Anderson Silva did.
Sure. One of my favorite fighters is John Dodson out of Albuquerque, and he's just exciting. He's kind of got that Silva-esque type fight style as far as that goes. He plays with his opponent, stuff like that. So anyway, he's one of my other favorites. So thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, I think he's one of the few guys that actually can get away with a little showboating and taunting. But, the martial arts are so rooted in respect that I think, that type of behavior really doesn't come naturally to a lot of fighters, Yes, sir.
I'm on tiptoes. I'm a bit small. There you go. What's your favorite fight you two have commentated together?
We got to come up with a better answer for this because we get asked this question all the time, and you see us sort of exhale because we don't know how to answer it,
There's a bunch. John and I were just in the back, and I looked at it. I was like, man, we've called some amazing fights. The one that really comes to mind is Mark Hunt and Bigfoot Silva. We'll go down as maybe the greatest heavyweight fight of all time. I mean, as of right now, it was insane. And Brian Stanvanderlei Silva was unbelievable. What else?
For me, I would probably
Korean
say
Zombie
Matt Brown and Eric. Yeah, that's right. Korean Zombie, Dustin Poirier a couple years ago. No, for me, though, probably Matt Brown and Eric Silva. And I know that's probably the freshest in my very poor memory. But the fact that Matt Brown was able to get through that first round and not succumb to that liver shot. And just both of those guys are just such forward movers, aggressive fighters. That's the first fight that comes to mind for me. But, yeah, as Kenny said, we've been pretty blessed.
Yeah, and the energy that night was insane. We had a bunch of NFL players, and they looked at each other like eyes wide open, like, oh, my, I can't believe this is going down right now. It was awesome.
Hey, Kenny, who do you think is going to win the World Cup?
Woo, I don't know. What's the score of the Argentina-Belgium game right now?
Argentina are winning, I think, 1-0.
It was 1-0. Okay, 1-0 still. I picked Argentina. But I don't know. I mean, typically when the World Cup has been in Europe, it's always a European team that wins. When it's in South America or the Americas, it's always been a South American, Latin American team that wins. So you have to believe that maybe Argentina is the favorite. They have the easiest route to the final right now, but I don't know. And then Brazil just lost Neymar, so that was a big loss. So I don't know, man. I think it was between those two teams. We'll see.
Argentina 1, Belgium 0. That's a final.
The final?
That is a final.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sports guy right here.
Hi. I was wondering mostly for Kenny, now that you're retired, what's your dream job? Like either in the UFC, obviously you enjoy your job now, but I mean, is that where you see yourself in the future?
Man, I feel like this is my dream job. I'm a fight nerd, so I love talking about fights. I love watching fights. So to have the ability to sit cage side with this guy and call fights is awesome. We get to travel. We have a good time. And, I wish I was coaching a little bit more. I wish I was training a little bit more. But everything that I'm passionate about has to do with mixed martial arts right now. So I guess, unless someone's going to pay me to sit on a beach somewhere. But then I'll get bored of that, too. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to know, Kenny, what you thought when it came to the GSP Johnny Hendricks fight. Who do you think really won?
All right. Well, obviously he's a teammate. He's a friend of mine. So people are like, you were biased, blah, blah, blah. But I thought GSP won. I thought it was very, very close. It was a tough fight, man. It was really close. But I genuinely thought that GSP won. Now, when I saw it the first time and I was tweeting about it, people are like, no, you're crazy. Johnny Hendricks won. I was like, am I? Wait a sec. Maybe I am. I went back and watched it a second time and still think that George won. So it was close. And hey, I think GSP is going to come back. I really do. I think that we will see him back at some point. Maybe they will rematch. Maybe there's a bigger fight for George. I've always wanted to see him. Someone asked about what super fight I would like to see. Anderson Silva GSP is one that I always kind of prayed for, and maybe we'll see that. But I think we'll see GSP back, and I think a lot of people do miss him.
I assume you thought Johnny Hendricks won the fight, or no?
Well, I was like Kenny, and I watched it again, and I thought that if you look back and how GSP, I thought he won the first round.
Right, that's what it hinged upon, right?
I thought whoever you think won the first round probably won that fight.
Yeah, that's what I think it came down to. And a lot of people are, always say, well, look at George's face. He looks scratched up against Diaz like that. He looks scratched up against Condit like that. Some people just mark up very easily. And, again, if you dominate a round, but it's still a 10-9, and the other ones are super close, and you win it by a hair, you still win that round. So, yeah.
And, that fifth round I thought was the most hung in the balance. George sort of took it, by the balls, for lack of a better way to put it. And I know Johnny did express some regret for, not going for it more in that fifth round.
And I just wanted to ask, too, really quick. I just really think that on the 26th, when Matt Brown goes up against Robbie Lawler, that is like fight of the year written all over.
There's no way that could be a bad fight.
That's right.
There's no way.
So I was just wondering, I don't know if you can say anything because you guys work for the UFC. Who do you think, both Jon and Kenny, who's going to win that fight?
John?
Well, first I would say it might be the first fight in UFC history where they actually cut the bonus checks before the fight. Here's your $50K, fellas. We know it's going to be great. I think Robbie Lawler's favored. I would lean in that direction. But, this is another opportunity, I think, for Matt Brown to prove that he belongs in the discussion with the elite. And I think if he can beat a guy like Robbie Lawler, who's had great success up a division at 185, that'll be as great a statement as he could make about being worthy of a title shot. But again, the real knock on Matt Brown, I think, when you look at this 7-fight winning streak, I believe it is just there aren't a ton of big names and top 10 guys in that mix. Well, Robbie Lawler certainly qualifies. But, yeah, I guess slight lean towards Lawler for me, but it'll be close.
Yeah, I agree with Jon. And it's funny because this year, from both of their performances, those are the two guys that I went and said, I will never bet against those guys ever again. And then they got matched up together. So I don't know what to bet. Yeah, exactly. Now what do I do? But, again, I give the edge to Robbie Lawler just because of the level of competition that he's faced. So and he's just fighting so smart. It's a great example of, saying that, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And Robbie Lawler kind of was, in Strikeforce, a completely different fighter. He was kind of just using stuff that he always used in his career, and he wasn't keeping up, it seemed, with the evolution of the sport. But now I think he's surpassed it. He's put some amazing skills together, and he's kept the excitement level up. And that's what's so impressive. It's one thing to win out there in the UFC against, high-level competition, but Robbie Lawler is doing it in an exciting fashion. So, so impressed with that kid.
My only concern for Lawler, I guess, 3 big fights, in the first 7 months of 2014, or really, from March to July here. It's a lot of activity, so it's hard to peak that many times in a short amount of time. But
yeah, let's pray that they both stay healthy, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
This question's for Kenny. During your career, you really utilized elbows, and I'll reference the Sean Shirk fight. He nearly bled out on the mat. What is wrong with your elbows?
There's no weird shape to them, really. It's just, I remember on The Ultimate Fighter, when we finally were able to throw elbows, that was the first time I was able to throw an elbow in a fight. And right before I went up there against Chris Liebman, I remember Ganyal Fairtex, this big Thai Muay Thai instructor, told me, he goes, you need to throw elbow. You have good elbow. Throw elbow. I was like, all right. And I went out there, and he was tight to me, and I don't hit very hard. I'm just not a big, strong guy. And he was in close, and I threw an elbow. And I remember just seeing blood just come down on my chest, and I was like, man, am I bleeding? And I look up, and I see like a hole in Chris Liebman's eye, and they ended up stopping the fight. It was 37 stitches. And it wasn't, I don't think it was anything other than just kind of relaxing on the elbow and just kind of, a lot of guys tense up, and I think I just used to stay relaxed with it and just kind of make more of a chopping kind of motion, and I'd cut a lot of guys with it. And I always felt like in a close range it was an underutilized weapon, and I would always use it because I didn't really hit very hard. I didn't have a lot of knockout power, and I had to use everything I could, and I just used elbows, started utilizing it off my back from the guard, and just try to use it whenever I could, and it was a successful weapon for me.
Thank you. Good question. Really good answer, too. I think we have started to see a little bit of an uptick when it comes to elbows being utilized in modern-day times. Yes, sir. What do you got?
Yeah, it's me again. Tonight, Machida, Weidman.
You just like hearing your voice on the mic is basically what it comes down to, right? That's okay,
no,
though.
I'm actually so fired up I could just rocket through the sky right now. But I'm just wondering tonight, Machida and Weidman, I'm a fan of both fighters. I learned a stat yesterday. I'm just wondering if you guys can confirm. Weidman has never been taken down, so 100% takedown defense. How is Machida going to win this fight tonight? Because I'm picking Machida, but I just don't know how he's going to do it.
I'm picking Machida as well, and I'll tell you how he can do it. He was very successful against a lot of wrestlers over his career, and he was successful at 205 pounds. So obviously being the champ at 205, he's going to bring down that same kind of power. And what's really tricky about Machida is the fact that he keeps such an amazing range. He's always in the perfect range, and I think that's something that really came from his karate background. And he's so patient. He waits for guys. He counters guys. He gets you frustrated, so you rush in and you run into that left hand that he throws so very well. He's going to have the speed advantage, and he has the best kind of defensive wrestling, and that is not allowing guys to even grab his leg. And he's going to need that. And he dominates that center of the cage where he can utilize his footwork. He circles away very well. He doesn't go straight back. So he's going to need that. And we saw Weidman kind of get a little bit frustrated against Anderson Silva. You saw it on his face. You kind of saw him get a little bit tight out there. And the fact that Machida has that style that it's so hard. I challenge anyone out there to go out and find a training partner who fights like Lyoto Machida. It's so difficult. Even Gegard Mousasi, after his fight against Machida, and he fought very well against him, didn't get the win, obviously, but he came over to me and said, you know, I prepared so well. I brought out great sparring partners. I thought it was going to be a great fight. I knew I was going to win this fight. He goes, but when I got in there against Lyoto Machida, it was so different. He couldn't find his range. It felt like he was playing catch-up the whole time. And in your head, when you feel like you're playing catch-up and you're frustrated, that compounds into a very negative energy, and guys start making mistakes because of that. Listen, Weidman's still the favorite. Don't get me wrong. I think Weidman is an absolute beast of a champion. But I just think Machida's style is such that it can give anyone fits, and for that reason, I'm picking him.
You know, with Weidman, I think it comes down to the physicality. You know, you hear some just crazy stories in the gym. It's hard to find guys who can last around with this guy. And, you know, I actually think it's an eventuality. At some point, Lyoto Machida is going to end up on his back, and it's a hard ask to get back up, you know. And Weidman's a 205er. You know, Machida's a former light heavyweight champion, obviously, but Weidman is a light heavyweight. I mean, fighting as a middleweight as well. So I think if Machida can avoid the takedown and when he does get taken down, get back up, he's got a crack. But I think, you know, the physicality of Weidman might be too much. Thanks, man. Work on that voice in your off time, all right? Thank you. You got one over there? Yes, sir. No, nothing over there? Okay. So we got your opinion on that one. Let's get to the heavyweights. Matt Mitrione, Stefan Struve. Struve, slight favorite here. Obviously, it's well documented coming back from the heart issue. He's delaying surgery, at least for now. But Mitrione in pretty good current form as well. Physically really looks like a much different guy than he did in his early UFC days. Forced to choose, which way do you lean in that one, my man?
You know, that's another tough one. You know, Struve does have the advantage heading into that fight. His reach, I think when you have the kind of reach that Stefan Struve has, no one should be able to come in and close that gap. If you're able to really master a good jab, Stefan Struve should keep everyone on the outside. He hasn't mastered that jab quite yet, though. Right. But you see, when he does find his range, he makes it very, very difficult, even against guys like Mark Hunt at times, to keep him on the outside. And he's tough as nails. He's a guy who's never going to quit. But Matt Mitrione is very athletic, and like you said, he looks totally different. Physically, he looks great. He's very confident, trains with a great squad, and I think it's going to be a close fight. And it's tough because we haven't seen Stefan in a little while. So on the ground, I think Stefan has the advantage, certainly. And on the feet, Mitrione, I think, hits a little harder. I give the edge to Stefan. I think he's got the slight edge heading into that fight.
So Stefan Struve, I remember at UFC 146, he told me he wanted to be the first fighter in UFC history to have 50 UFC fights. He is absolutely obsessed with mixed martial arts. He was so excited when he got medical clearance, so he walks up to Joe Silva and he says, hey Joe, you know, I'm ready to make my comeback. And Joe Silva said, dude, I don't want to see you come back unless you're going to use your reach, use your jab, and use knees. You know, knees can be a huge weapon for a guy who's 7 feet tall. So I look for Stefan Struve to actually, you know, employ the reach for once, use the jab, and maybe get those knees going.
I love your impersonation of him talking to Joe Silva. Like, hey, Joe. Yeah, Joe, how you doing? Man. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you down there. Here, let me get on one knee for you, Joe. Yes.
Question for Kenny. How do you think Conor McGregor stacks up against the elite in the featherweight, the top guys?
I think he absolutely matches up very, very well against everyone at 145 pounds. Not only that, he believes it. Conor truly believes it. I think the sky's the limit for him, both as a fighter and as a charismatic personality in the sport. He can transcend like very few fighters can. I think he's got the personality. He's got that star quality to him for sure. And he fights in a very exciting manner as well. I think his level of skill, striking-wise, is superior to most of the guys in the division. And maybe you can even argue that even more so in some ways than Jose Aldo, just because of his countering ability and his ability to move his head like he does. I think he still has some work to do with his wrestling and jiu-jitsu. We haven't seen him challenge in that regard, but there's no doubt that Conor McGregor has all the makings of not only being a champion, but a superstar.
You know, he's such a master promoter that I think a lot of people lose sight of the fact that he is elite. And I think as he starts to fight top 10 competition, you're going to see that come through. We both have long believed that he is an elite fighter, and once he gets the chance to prove that, I think, you know, the masses will realize that, you know. Thanks, man. Good to have you here. So we have got the Ultimate Fighter finale coming down on Sunday night. The fighter's actually going to weigh in here. It's a UFC Fan Expo first. For the first time, we will have a weigh-in on the stage here at 1 o'clock. BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar. You know, it's interesting when it comes to BJ Penn because he so wanted a third crack at Frankie Edgar. And, you know, I think the public perception was, you know, yes, the first fight was close. A lot of people thought BJ Penn deserved the decision that night in Abu Dhabi. The second fight wasn't. So at least on paper, it looks like Frankie Edgar has his number, yet this is the fight that BJ really wants. Why do you think he wants this one so badly?
Man, I think BJ sees Frankie as a guy that he should have beat.
Yeah.
And I think he truly believes that he won the first fight. I think he did as well. I think BJ won the first fight. I think they're 1-1 here. Here's the problem. In the second fight, as you said, Frankie was pretty dominant in that second fight. I think we saw a lot of skills, and Frankie is getting better. BJ will have a tough time with a guy who moves his feet like Frankie Edgar. Frankie has that kind of bouncy style, gets in and out, moves a lot. BJ sits down on his punches, which allows him to hit as hard as he does, but also it's tougher to kind of find his range that way. So I think the big question, aside from the weight, which he's going to make very easily, is how is he going to adjust to that style of Frankie Edgar? How is he going to adjust to that variety? How is he going to adjust to that movement of Frankie Edgar? How is he going to cut off that cage? So BJ definitely has his work cut out for him, but this is a fight that he can win. And I think we've seen BJ do some amazing things in the octagon where we are shaking our heads going, what? Well, how did he not win that fight?
Right.
Why aren't we seeing the best BJ out there? And, I think we're going to see BJ at his best on, tomorrow night. I can't wait.
Well, if you are a gambler, $100 on BJ Penn will bring you back about $350. So if you do like him as the underdog, not for nothing, I would get to the window sooner rather than later. Yes, sir.
What's going on, guys?
What's up,
man?
If BJ wins, do you think he should retire?
If he wins,
Yeah.
I think if he wins, he wants to get a crack at Jose Aldo or Chad Mendez or whomever is the featherweight champion. My speculation is that he wouldn't have come back just for one fight. I think he would like to chase a title in a record third division, and I think if he beats Frankie Edgar as a big underdog here, that title shot could materialize.
Yeah, I know Dolce said he could probably make 135, but I actually think I'd love to see BJ back at 155. I think if he gets the win against Frankie, he should go up a weight class yet again to 155 and fight at 155 pounds, where I think he's at his best, and I think he, again, can get that belt back. And BJ said something amazing the other day that his mentor, Pat from Ruka, said. He goes, we asked BJ, why do you want to fight again? And he goes, fish swim, birds fly, and I fight. And that's what BJ is all about. And I just love that quote, and I think he's fired up for this one.
Yeah, and he's had layoffs before, 2004 to 2006. He had some extended time off, so something just fell from the ceiling. Probably one of my haters hanging out up there. Yes, sir. What do you got?
Hey, it's great to see you guys in person. This question is for Kenny. Kenny, I love Chael Sonnen myself ever since the first time I heard him rant against Anderson Silva, number one. But for you, aren't you just a little bit glad now he's off the show because now you'll have more airtime?
No, not at all, actually. I don't think that's it. That's ever like a part of my mind where, I want more airtime. Chael's awesome, man, and I love working with him, and I feel like it's always the team that makes it better. So, yeah, we had a great show, man, so I miss him. I miss him already.
And if you know anything about this man, he is a man of humility. In all seriousness, he didn't get into any of this for money or fame. It was for a love of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts. Paycheck doesn't hurt, but I know that's not what drove him there. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Let's hear for Kenny Florian one more time. Don't forget, weigh in right on this stage at 1 o'clock. Hope to see you all back here. Thank you very much.
Get in the fight everywhere you go with UFC Fight Pass, the new online service offering ultimate access to the world's fastest growing sport. UFC Fight Pass is the exclusive home to a slate of live UFC events, showcasing top 10 contenders in big-time fights, over 150 individual live bouts in the first year alone that cannot be seen anywhere else. UFC Fight Pass also features exclusive original programming, like the International Ultimate Fighter Series from Brazil, Canada, Australia, China, and more. You'll also get in-depth interviews with the sport's biggest stars, up-to-the-minute reports from live events around the globe, and special features available only on UFC Fight Pass. Plus, get unlimited access to the most extensive library of MMA content on Earth, including fights from the UFC's Dark Ages.
Delivers shot. They're toe-to-toe. And Ortiz shoots it again. Twerking Ortiz still. And it's over. Gutsy performance. Oh, my God. And this one is over.
and the greatest bouts from other MMA promotions, including over 500 Pride fights, more than 600 WEC bouts, 500 plus Strikeforce fights, as well as the best of Affliction, WFA, and more.
Another spectacular moment for the hero.
You can do anything to put your mind to. This is the UFC. This is what we do.
That was a tremendous victory. Absolutely incredible. Are you kidding me?
There's only one way to ensure that you never miss a UFC fight. Get your UFC Fight Pass to watch your favorite fights wherever you are, whenever you want.
They are on their feet. This is crazy. What a battle.
This greatly surpassed any expectations.
Now is the time.
This is the Octagon control every UFC fan dreams of. Go to UFCFightPass.com for your 30-day free trial. UFC Fight Pass. Anywhere, anytime.